Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, and welcome to Movies vs. Capitalism, an anti-capitalist movie podcast. I am Frank.
And I'm Rivka.
And we're coming off of a previous recording, so we're we're feeling a little, it's near the end of the night, a little loopy, we're getting a little goofy, and we're going to talk some shit right here at the top. Because one of our favorite things to talk about, really one of your favorite things, Riv, is artificial intelligence, specifically AI, being used to supplant the work of artists and creative people. And we're seeing that play out in real time over this past week.
Yeah, we are. And so a filmmaker that we've covered, well, only just one film thus far, Princess Mononoke.
Just Princess Mononoke, yep.
But who we know has always had badass politics, and we kind of discussed here. We're talking about Hayao Miyazaki. Yeah, maybe you fuck with AI.
Ghibli.
Yeah, Studio Ghibli. Maybe you fuck with ChatGPT. Maybe you don't. I'm really trying to be like, it's not, again, this is now entered into our world. You're using AI whether you want to or not at times these days. It's just, that's the nature of fucking capitalism, right? I mean, we make choices around it, but I'm just saying, not trying to like, again, the individual thing, it's so easy to go back to like the shaming and this, but it's like they're just putting it, you pick up your phone and you're like, oh my God, I'm using AI. Fuck. Like, I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
This would be more of a conscious choice. So like
Sure.
integrated into ChatGPT. Well, I guess OpenAI, they introduced this AI image generation tool, and I most have been aware of it when you see people start to be like on Instagram, like, here's my AI picture of myself, or here's my AI art.
Yeah, the image generation thing has been around for a minute. I know like Midjourney is another big AI image generator, but ChatGPT and OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT, rolled out specifically this Studio Ghibli image generator maybe like two weeks ago at this point.
So you can create any kind of like meme or portrait or whatever you want in a Ghibli-esque fashion, which if you've seen any of these films, first of all, like it's such a specific auteur, unbelievable imagery, hand drawn, that I think I can't remember, I was looking for the statistic, but like some of these images themselves in the original animation take days for like 2 or 3
years,
frames.
sometimes.
Years. Holy shit.
For like full sequences, yeah.
And now this AI has come along and it's like, do you want to see your cat with your head on yourself in a Ghibli-esque, like whatever, like some dumb shit or some really fascist shit, as we saw the White House make use of recently, posting on their Twitter. What was it, Frank? You were describing the image to me.
It was I guess the arrest of someone that they turned into, like someone that they said is a fentanyl dealer, that they turned into a Studio Ghibli animation still. Yeah, really just like the worst fascists using. And then also the IDF posted also some Studio Ghibli renderings of Israeli soldiers and Israeli tanks and shit.
The most disgusting, ironic, painful thing for such a prolific artist like Miyazaki, who has anti-capitalist, anti-fascist,
anti-war, anti-industrialist, like anti-authoritarian, like. It is, I don't want to call them contradictions, but it's just like, because we discuss contradictions as the inevitable tensions that arise within the capitalist framework. But this is really, it's a bastardization. It's an assault. It is just like a complete misuse of something that is the work of Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, such a beautiful expression of humanism rendered via animation, and is now on the first level being used by fucking ChatGPT, which is a for-profit company, to, just get more people using the service. And Sam Altman, the
destroying
CEO,
the environment at
destroying the environment
rapid pace.
And he even went online at some point and said, like, hey, everyone, cool it with the Studio Ghibli things. You're literally melting our servers right now from
fuck.
overuse. So if like the ChatGPT servers are melting, you can imagine how much power these fucking servers are using so that people can just like have a goof and oh, look, it's my parents, but Studio Ghibli. Like we were fine. We didn't need this. And now, like you're saying, the added layer of the worst fucking fascists now also using this for funsies.
It's such a massive example of like alienation under capitalism, and like how people truly don't, they're so alienated from like the the original generation of this art, what kind of environmental extraction it goes through just to give you something like most people just don't fucking know. That's how useful alienation is to the capitalist project, that it's not like, you're not faulting people who, like, most people really just aren't aware. And hopefully once they become aware, you're not fucking making a stupid fucking, I don't know, self-portrait of your, that I will be like, you do have a choice there. Again, it's so integrated in so much of what we have that now like AI is being pushed and forced upon us. But that disconnect from like what these images originally were and the labor that went in, the artistic labor that went into them, and then the extraction from the planet that it that it take, to the point where the guy has to be like, yo, chill.
That is at the heart of it. It's that this trend has come so far away from the original intention and labor of the artists that put this artwork out into the world to begin with. And there's been a Miyazaki quote that's been going around that people have wrongly been attributing to him seeing this animation trend happening right now. This is actually a quote from him from 2016, but he was also responding to some AI animation, and he says it is an insult to life itself. And this is an artisan. This is a craftsman. This is someone who has put so much time and energy and labor into perfecting his art and his storytelling, and to see it just completely bastardized and warped and mutated by some of the worst actors possible, like, that is so painful. I hope, and some people have been saying, and I'm like, I hope Studio Ghibli sues the fuck out of OpenAI and Sam Altman. And look, we've talked about intellectual property rights on this show, copyright law, whatever, how they're also used very much in this country to maintain power over others, over other creatives. But in a case like this, I'm like, Studio Ghibli, like, they are the creators of this artwork, and it should be fucking illegal for this company to just steal all this art, train its robots, and then melt the environment just so some people can have some lulz and the White House can tweet out like the most heinous artwork ever.
Yeah, and I think it is like, it's again part of this project of like pushing this alienation. I mean, like, artists are fucking powerful. Art is fucking powerful, and there's something there to be like, if we can alienate people from the core of the creative project, like the core of the humanity of art, then capital, another big fucking win from capital. Like, it's so dangerous. It's such a benefit, but where we need to know. But I think we have so much power. Like, the artist does have so much power, and we know Miyazaki's not going to go quiet. I mean, this is a dude who sent fucking Predator Weinstein the sword when he wanted to cut one of his films. I can't remember which one, and he sent him like a sword in the mail.
Oh my god, that's
like,
right.
You won't fucking cut my shit. I mean, he's a badass. And again, that was 2016 making a statement like that. Like, knows what the fuck is up. And there's so much truth to that statement as well. Like, we've talked about it before, but like the existential threat of AI against the artist, I don't think you cannot, the existential threat is against our environment, but you can bastardize like the life force of the artist, but you can't recreate it. It's not the fucking same.
No, it is not recreatable, but your point is so important. And I think if you alienate the audience themselves from the actual laborers and the artistry that goes into this work,
and the soul,
then you are,
the soul
and the
of
soul,
the artist.
and the soul of the artist, then you are, in a way, it is a form of, I don't know, it's a form of propaganda. It's a form of
like imagination bondage. And ultimately, if you can do that to your consumer, I mean, really, it's like a form of slavery to the to the consumer, in the sense that like they are being so robbed of like being able to gain anything from their art and just respond to these parceled out pieces, lifeless pieces. It's really scary.
And like an anti-socialization, cutting people off from the traditional way that art and artists have influenced communities and individuals over time, and removing that aspect and atomizing people even more from one another. So we'll keep tabs on this.
Something to be watched amongst all the many things.
And you know what? A good primer conversation for the movie we're about to talk about, another animated movie, a wonderful animated movie, A Bug's Life. So we will get to that conversation in just a moment. But before we do, we just want to remind you, our audience, that we do not sell ads on this show, nor honestly could we. I don't think anyone wants to sell ads with us. We say that we don't sell ads. We've never tried, and honestly probably couldn't. But you know what? We are not selling them.
I don't know, Frank. I think you can find you could find
I could maybe rustle up a sponsor, but we don't. We rely on community support to keep the show going. And if you'd like to do that, you can subscribe to our Patreon.
That's right. For just $5 a month, you get access to new bonus episodes and our entire back catalog. And we have some bangers, if I do say so myself, in that catalog. So check it out. Our Patreon link is in the episode description in your podcast player or at mvcpod.com. And also, please, if you haven't already, rate, review, subscribe to this podcast on your podcast player so you don't miss new episodes, but also so more people can find us. We're building quite a really interesting audience, and it really does help us pop up for people who, need to hear these ideas.
That's true. And also, because we don't sell ads, we like to donate our ad space. So if you're part of a leftist or progressive organization, or you got a project that you're working on, or you just, you're a fellow traveler and you would like to run an ad on this show, you can email us at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
All right, we are going to take a break, but we will be right back with Ellory Smith to talk about A Bug's Life.
Hey everyone, we've got a great organization we want to tell you about called Creatives Thrive NYC. CTNYC helps artists and creatives build the financial skills to keep art a priority in their lives while still putting food on the table. CTNYC is an innovative year-round training initiative providing expert financial knowledge, trusted resources, and a network of reliable partners to help creatives thrive in a chaotic and unjust economy.
CTNYC is a partnership between ArtBuild, PAM and Dialect, Get Shameless, and the Entertainment Community Fund, formerly the Actors Fund. These fully funded, completely free workshops share real-world financial tools as well as methods to build a life that fits your budget and your values.
These workshops are 100% virtual, and you do not need to be in New York or even the United States to join. Workshops begin from November 2024 and continue through June 2025.
Register at artbuilt.org/CTNYC and check out artbuilt.org, getshameless.com, and entertainmentcommunity.org.
Today, we are joined by, my voice is still fucked if you're listening to this. But today, we are joined by Ellory Smith. Ellory is a 3-time Emmy nominated writer and comedian based in Los Angeles. She is best known for her work on Adult Swim's Robot Chicken. Ellory, thank you so much for joining us here on Movies vs. Capitalism.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
We are extremely excited. I told Riv about you. I would like to give a little bit of background. I got introduced to you just on social media, on Instagram. I think maybe I caught either a stand-up clip of yours or a tweet of yours that went viral. You're very good at some very politically charged, funny tweets that often make the rounds on all the meme accounts. And I started following you, and then I was like, oh, she's got good politics. Okay, I'm down with this. So yeah, would love to learn more. And I know that you do a lot of mutual aid and volunteer work with some friends of ours in Los Angeles. So I would just love to hear about how, I don't know, your comedy career, your writing career intersects with your politics and what that means for you.
Sure. I'm sure that my comedy career is hampered by my politics, probably. But I just can't seem to shut up. And so here we are. I don't know. It's interesting. when I think of myself, I don't necessarily think of myself as an overtly political person, but I often hear that I am. So I guess that might be true. I think I'm just kind of mouthy and opinionated. It's not often that I come across a topic I don't know how I feel about, which is something I tend to like about myself. I know how I feel about most things. And yeah, I think that comes across in my comedy. A lot of my comedy is about the experience of labor, as a political party, as the workers. It's a lot of jokes about day jobs and sort of the inherent hierarchy in a day job. And I think that friction makes for really funny comedy. And I'm sure that we'll get into that in A Bug's Life, because that's sort of like the thesis of that movie. But yeah, I'm pretty involved locally. I have run a soup kitchen in Koreatown for the last 5 years. And that work is really important to me. And I used to think that is like so separate from my other stuff, but it's really not. It's like, it's very community oriented. It's all staffed by like comedians and writers and, wayward executives and like recently fired assistants. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've been able to carve out a really special life for myself out here with that stuff.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that that's just kind of, the politics are organic. And it is so often when people are like, well, what are politics? I don't know if I'm a political person. I don't know about any of that. And I think comes down to, how do you interpret the world and the power dynamics in it and how we treat one another. So you probably can figure out your politics and they're probably clearer than you think. I don't know if either of you watched the recent Love is Blind, but there was a
yes
thematic.
Absolutely.
Frank doesn't watch. I always have to catch him up.
Well, that guy not being able to analyze his own politic is a politic, right?
Exactly. And totally a choice on this season, but we won't go down that rabbit hole because we do have a lot to talk about with this.
We often do go down Love is Blind rabbit holes.
And it has led to, some really interesting.
It has led to great conversation. Absolutely. Yeah. And I get it in passing between you and my partner. I get little snippets, little. I'm like, what's going on in Love is Blind? I just, anytime I see the two of you, I get the full update. So thank you for that. But you're right. We could do a whole episode on it. But today,
we're here to talk about A Bug's Life,
a movie we have been waiting to do on this podcast. And this officially closes out the Bug movie trifecta of A Bug's Life, Ants, and B-Movie, which I don't think anyone really considers to be part of that. But like, for all intents and purposes, here we are.
It did
We're
make
finishing
rewatching quite trippy, I will say. But we'll get into it. I was like, whoa, I've seen these. I'm well-versed in these all, and I'm getting confused. But this is A Bug's Life, which we'll see where you all sit on the spectrum. But many people consider this the best of. Directed by John Lasseter and Andrew Stanton. Story by John Lasseter and Joe Ranft. Screenplay by Andrew Stanton, Don McNeary, and Bob Shaw. Starring Dave Foley, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Kevin Spacey, Dennis Leary, and Phyllis Diller. The budget for this film was $120 million, and it grossed $363 million worldwide. Not bad. If you haven't seen this in a while, a little synopsis written by Frank. A hyper-individualistic ant named Flick throws his ant colony into existential danger when he accidentally destroys this yearly offering of food earmarked for a swarm of exploitative, violent grasshoppers. Flick then leaves the colony and travels to the Big Bug City to find a band of warriors to fight the evil grasshoppers, but he fucks up again and accidentally books a troop of desperate circus bugs, leaving the ants to fend for themselves. Some historical context, and I'll get this for you, Frank, because we're going to keep you on vocal rest.
I did. I asked Riv to read all of the copy just to, for my recovery. Yeah, for my recovery.
Vocals.
Thank you.
This film was released on November 15th, 1998. This year, from films this year that we've also covered, You've Got Mail, big deal. Ants, big deal. And The Truman Show, big deal. Whoa.
Damn. 1998.
Yeah. It's near the end of the Clinton era. This is the year of the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Shout out to Monica, fellow podcaster.
You got to get her on the pod.
gotta get her. I mean,
Oh
that
my
would
God.
be.
We've been trying to book her for months. She's just so hard.
She's hard to get
so
a hold
hard
of.
to pin down.
Yeah.
Google was founded this year, and the first MP3 player was released in Japan. The United States Department of Justice and 20 U.S. states filed an antitrust case against Microsoft, alleging that the company had a monopoly on the software market. They probably did.
Yeah, I think they did.
I think they did. And the TV sitcom Sex and the City premiered. Wow! And the final 2-part episode of Seinfeld aired to 76.3 million viewers. I never made that connection that there was that. Wow. That they didn't cross over.
Yeah, it would have been too powerful if Seinfeld and Sex and the City were on at the same time.
I don't think that they exist in the same New York.
No, they definitely do not.
Absolutely not. I have such visceral memories.
They would have forced a crossover. We would have gotten the Seinfeld Sex and the City crossover. Like,
oh my God.
Jerry dates Carrie.
Yeah, Jerry dates Carrie. Or Kramer goes out with Samantha.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
It definitely would have been George and Miranda. Or maybe that's, I don't know, maybe we do more oddball pairings. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, this is a whole, this needs some thought. I will be thinking about this probably for weeks.
This is a good spec script for someone out there. Or for Ellory, really for Ellory.
Those don't exist anymore.
That's true. That is true.
And just a few more things. Smoking cigarettes is banned in California bars and restaurants. Big deal. And the FDA approves Viagra, the first ever erectile dysfunction pill. 1998.
Simpler time. All right. So Ellory, the first question we ask our guest to start up the conversation, why did you choose this movie to talk about on this podcast?
To be honest, because I had watched it like a week before you reached out. And also, I was kind of embarrassed about picking this one because it's such an obvious choice. And I was like, is that kind of a give me? Because it's so on its face, like the politic is kind of obvious. But there's a little like nuance there. But yeah, I love it. I work in animation, and I love animation. And I kind of like, I don't know, I like children's movies that get political. I think that's really fun. I loved the new Wallace and Gromit movie, which was like a total anti-AI piece. But yeah, I love A Bug's Life. I've watched it a million times, and I will see it a million times more.
Do you remember the first time you came across A Bug's Life?
I saw it in 1998 when it came out. Yeah, for sure I did. And then I remember we had the VHS tape at home, and then I watched it like a few times between college and whatever. And then when Disney Plus came out, I find myself going back to those movies more.
Yeah, Bug's Life, I think, because we recently covered Monsters, Inc. And
that was my favorite movie. I love Monsters, Inc.
Yeah, Monsters, Inc. and Bug's Life are like 1A and 1B, my favorite Pixar movies, just because of the age I was when they came out. So yeah, 1998, 10 years old. And then, yeah, we had either VHS or DVD, I don't remember. But that it was on regular play in our house, A Bug's Life. And it doesn't have like a long cultural tale, which is sad. Like, I feel like a lot of people, obviously everyone loves the Toy Story franchise.
It sort of fell into the wayside. Yeah, there wasn't an aftermarket of toys, whereas like with Monsters, Inc., there was a huge aftermarket of toys, and there's incoming Disney ride. And, they added to the canon on the universe. And dare I say, maybe it's because it was too political that they just sort of...
Let's dare say.
Possibly. Riv, what about you?
I got so confused because I was watching and I was so confused because I was certain I hadn't seen this, but obviously I was like, no, I've seen this. I know this. This is like,
I don't know. You hadn't seen Monsters, Inc. So
I definitely hadn't seen Monsters, Inc. But this is 98. This was like, I think Monsters, Inc. I was not quite age. You weren't really quite age appropriate either, but it found its way to you.
We were 13. I mean, that's 13-year-olds can watch animated Pixar movies.
But this one, I definitely was like, oh, I know, and I'm saying lines, but it was because we'd also just done Ants and B movie, and clearly Ants, there's so much. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it. Like, they were in direct competition. There was definitely some thinking, there was stealing ideas back and forth. So it does feel like you're like, whoa, what universe? Like, there's definitely similar movie. So I can understand why I would be confused. Yeah, love it. Great movie.
Great. So much fun.
Huge Kevin Spacey fan. So that's what I keep coming back for.
Big Kevin Spacey defender. That was another like pole of your comedy that I didn't really want to get into, but
absolutely.
you opened the door.
That's definitely an underline of it. Yeah.
Are you a Kevin Spacey defender? I'm so curious.
No. He's kidding.
Oh.
No. That we're doing a bit. That's fake.
No. This is a joke.
Okay.
This is a joke.
Please do not spread that, because all of his accusers have ended up dead.
Oh shit! Is that true?
3 of them have. Yeah. Right.
Holy
Frank,
shit!
Oh my God! What?
Did you know that?
I did not
one
know
of them
that.
killed himself. One was in a car accident,
bad.
and I don't know what happened to the third one. But yeah.
Oh my God! I didn't know that, but I did watch. I mean, I've watched the different docuseries for sure. Wow. He did recently pop up on a feed of like he was really mad at some actors saying he was kind of doing this character, like he's kind of become Hopper a little bit in terms of like his defense. I think is very angry, and it's got very Hopper vibes. You're just like, just don't say anything.
Well, that's why it's like I feel like the role really makes sense for him.
I mean, he kills it. He does.
He kills it. Yeah.
Incredible voice performance across the board.
And Ants has Woody Allen, so it's like,
Wow. Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
That's awesome.
This is true.
Wow.
This is very true.
Getting more
Holy
liked
shit.
by the moment. That's sick.
Wow. I was about to go down a whole Kevin Spacey rabbit hole, but back to A Bug's Life. Yeah, this movie is fantastic. I loved getting to rewatch it again. I watched it last night. It still holds up. It is such a fun romp, in and out, like what, an hour, 35 minutes.
So tight.
And I thought going into this, because we've seen the clip of, and we'll talk about Hopper explaining basically how the many outnumber the few. Like that clip has circulated in the last few years of like what radicalized you as a child. It's like this moment right here.
Yeah.
So that aspect of the movie's politics are like spot on. But on this watch, my big takeaway was Flick is kind of the villain of the movie.
I did notice a little editorializing in your copy when you said hyper-individualistic Flick.
Yeah. You think? Yes, you were. That was a correct observation. Yeah. And we could start there because that's where we kick off the movie. Flick is, we are introduced to him, and he's like this inventor. He has this new way to, revolutionize the way they harvest grain. It's very cool. It's a very, he's got like one of these, got this like Rube Goldberg contraption on his back.
Yeah.
Cutting down the stalks of grain. Very fun. The way that the movie presents it as like, he is trying to break the mold of what the ant colony is supposed to be. Everyone's just supposed to like stay in line, follow orders, not think for themselves. And he's like, I'm thinking for myself and I got new ideas or whatever. But it's all rooted in this idea, and he repeats it multiple times, which is, I want to make a difference. It doesn't have anything to do with like bettering the colony. It's just that he wants the validation for his ideas. And ultimately, what he wants is to industrialize. Like he's an industrialist. He's trying to, he's trying to change.
He's a tech entrepreneur.
It's easy. He is a fucking tech entrepreneur. He's trying to change the way they harvest grain, this agrarian lifestyle that these ants have built for themselves, and wants to like now cut down the stalks. Also, first thought, I was like, yo dog, you cut down all those stalks, they're not going to be around next year for harvesting grain. You're going to be looking at an empty forest. He's trying to deforest Ant Island.
Wow.
So that's my
Oh my God. Speak
that's
on
my
it.
jumping off point.
Speak on
That's
it.
I mean, there's a few other moments. But I was like, I don't know about Flick. I don't know.
Flick deforesting Ant Island. I need a moment. Yeah.
I would underline all that. But I would also say that you have to make his character nuanced. There has to be, because if he was just a worker trying to organize other workers, then it would be too easy where it's like, okay, this is the bad guy and this is the good guy. But where it's like, Flick is wrong, they want to get rid of him. There's layers of relation there that I think make the movie more interesting, but the politics more confused.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, I agree with you. I think this piece of Flick doesn't actually change the politics fully of the film.
It influences it though. It definitely shades it. And it's also, it's sort of like the wrong math, but the right answer.
Yes.
Well, he has a journey. Like he doesn't start. Yeah. He has a journey for sure. And he doesn't become Bezos. they don't let him. Like they don't let him become Bezos Flick. Like that's not the vibe I wouldn't think that's where he's headed. Do you?
But his journey is he needs to become more community minded, where he needs to be like sent away, and then he finds this sort of family of misfits, and the family teaches him that we all take care of each other, and actually like it's our ideas and around. It's not just us, and it's not just our ideas.
Yes. I feel like he did. Yeah, I felt like that was his journey for sure. Like, did you, Frank, or did you feel like he was left still individualistic?
No, I definitely think that ultimately was his journey. Because in like the climax of the movie, he is the one that says, you know, it's not ants who need grasshoppers. You are the ones who need us. So he's the one that like incites this collectivist defense that the ants all participate in at the end. So like he eventually gets there. But I think it was rooted in a very individualistic impulse to want to stand out from the ant colony. And I'm not wholly against individualism. I think that's something that socialists get a bad rap for, is that we just want everyone to be the exact same. I want everyone to be able to express themselves in their own individual way, but like we are all still get to collectively work towards like a better society and future together. So it's like it's not one or the other, it's both and. So I guess we do kind of get there with Flick.
Yeah. I read this really interesting pamphlet like last month called Workers Against the War. It's from Mary E. Marcy. It's like a 1912 socialist pamphlet, and she was like a very popular whatever in the canon of like Chicago socialists. And she had this one essay about how, like, I'm paraphrasing. This is me applying modern terms, but like freaks are really important to the movement. So it's like people who are pushing action, who are maybe going too far, they make our conversation like look more moderate. And so they're important for having like action is important at all levels. And even if it is not what you would do and you don't necessarily like it, it keeps the movement pushing forward. And if there's no dissent, there's no conversation. If there's no conversation, there's no growth.
Yeah, it's like the unity struggle. There needed to be this moment of struggle with Flick kind of pushing the edges so that they could come back and unify. And I am glad that they do unify here because you're right, Frank. They could have fully gone a different direction at the end of this. Yeah,
them flying the bird at the end is sort of like the perfect metaphor.
Yeah, it is a dialectic, and I I love freaks are important to the movement. And I get what you're saying. And this is a theory that I've also heard recently, which is like those fringe elements do end up making just, more of like a standard leftist platform sound more palatable, which I totally agree with. And I think we do get there with Flick. And I'm glad that the ending both, I guess, celebrated his ideas and individualism. We get everyone is now harvesting the grain with these grain harvesters. Although I am still concerned about I am still concerned about the deforestation.
The technology will ruin the earth.
Yeah, they're gonna have to learn the hard way, and that's what comes with industrialization. But no, I thought the movie rightfully like landed on a very strong like the many versus the few collectivist message, which is beautiful.
One of my critiques was just where I do think Ants got it right a little bit more was like Ants kind of lent into the matriarchy that like is inherent in ant life, that is true for ant life. That like this, I was like, I don't know. I felt like they kind of belittled the queen's abilities. Just like I felt like the matriarchs in the ant colony were sort of like weaker than they could have been. That's all I'll say with that.
I was wondering in the movie, it feels like they belittle her because she's old. Like, because she's specifically an older woman.
Ageism, too.
Yeah, I would think it's like a specific strain of, like, ageism and misogyny.
Which, again,
probably
doesn't make sense with the science of ants, because it just, like, yeah.
But there is that moment when the grasshoppers first arrive and they haven't finished collecting all the grain, and the ants all panic, and Princess Ada doesn't know how to like get everyone back in order, and the queen, I forget the queen's full name, Queen Ant, like does like a loud whistle and is like, everybody single file, like harvesting the thing and then back into the anthill. So like she shows that she knows what she like when
she knows what's. I just think they could have been used. I just noticed that.
Sure. I did appreciate though how the aristocracy had a council. So it wasn't just like all one person. There was a little bit of top-down democratic centralism happening within the ant colony, which I don't think biologically ants do. I don't think they assemble councils.
I think they're a lot. Yeah, I think they're closer to just probably like. I mean, they just it's just so incredible how like in tune their nature is to be able to pick up on like all these things. I did a lot more ant research when we did ants, so sorry. Go back to that episode and listen to me bug out on that. But sorry, I got us down here.
Wow,
but,
good.
Yeah, but I know they're just like inherently the nature is like collectivist and organized and pretty incredible how they wouldn't have actually been stunted by that leaf at the top. Like they're pretty incredible.
Ants are very incredible. When I was still living in LA, we had an exterminator come over. We had a detached garage in the place that we were renting, and we had a couple bugs. And then like he came in and there's all this like dirt pulled up from the ground. And I was like, oh yeah, I think these are ants. It's like, yeah, they pulled all of that dirt, and there was so much dirt. There was just like mounds and mounds of dirt all around the garage. And I was like, it's like, yeah, the ants pulled up all that dirt. I'm like, damn, that's impressive. And the exterminator, who I think was from New Zealand, turned to me and dead serious, so impassioned, was just like, they're incredible creatures.
And they are. They are. That's why they always say an ant can lift like 15 times its weight.
So that was my take on Flick. Flick, mixed feelings about. But the the politics that this movie gets absolutely spot the fuck on is the relationship between the grasshoppers and the ants. The grasshoppers representing the ruling class, the ants representing the proletariat, and this grain offering being the manifestation of labor exploitation and the creation of surplus value that is then taken by the grasshoppers, even though they do absolutely no work. Period. End of story.
It's so good and it's so clear. I love it when like you were like just that in children's movies, because it's just like you're like, that is not fair. That is not fair. Period. And that's kind of just like.
But in the movie, it's framed even like through the lens of, this is how we've always done it. This is just the way things are. You know, don't ask questions. They're good to us if we're good to them. And it takes one person like sort of breaking away at that or chipping away at that, even if it's for his own reasoning. And I think like in the real world, you see a lot of that where it's like the people that come to the forefront are sort of self-serving. I mean, that's another discussion, but I think that that's true. You know, their motives can be sort of like kind of whatever, but the lens of the movie is like, you need one person to really whip up the conversation.
Yes. A catalyst.
Yeah. And then I think bringing like the outside, I don't know, it made me think a lot about like community organizing, labor organizing, workers organizing workers, which is actually not what we see a bunch anymore. Typically now we have professional organizers that work with unions, which I'm for because they're trained and whatever. But because the proletariat is so far away from unionizing, like the history of unionizing when they were most popular, we see very little of workers organizing on their own. The best example of it, I think, is Starbucks United, at least in recent history.
Yeah, it just takes one person to get the conversation going. I mean, that's like the beginning of have you ever been in like a union organizing meeting or spoken with a union organizer? They're like, the first thing you do is just start talking to people, just start talking, have conversations, and be careful about it. If anyone is listening and thinking of organizing a union in your workplace, fully support, but you have to like, make sure you're talking to people who are going to be sympathetic, maybe start laying those breadcrumbs. But it does, once those ideas start to be sown, then, of that may 1,000 flowers bloom or whatever. And Hopper says it right up the top. He's like, he says it at the end. He says, ideas are very dangerous things, and you were put on this earth to serve us.
And I think even in the movie, you see like the ants push back. And so people are so worried about what would happen if they rose up and failed that they're not willing to rise up. And so it takes Flick like lying to them to be able to change the circumstances or the context of their circumstances, I guess.
Yeah. And it's fortunate that it did work out for them. Because again, Flick did lie to everybody. This is another reason I said that wrote down that Flick is the villain. Because he did lie to everybody.
Yeah, took a real bad risk.
Yeah, took a huge bad risk. Put his entire colony in mortal danger. And that's why I'll never be on Flick's side again.
Really? See, I do think it was that, yeah, I don't know about the lie. Like, I kind of do feel like, I mean, it's also the circumstances, right? Like, once we find out they're going to squash the queen, and that really would be, again, like, once the queen's done, there's no ant colony. She is the mate. I mean, I guess the princess could, but I don't know how that works. I think like the queen, at least at this stage, is like breeding the whole thing. It all comes down in this way. So I think like, while that was hyper individualistic, I do think like once he got into that place, he was sort of making leadership decisions to be like, we gotta figure something out, because their plan was just to stick with the old. Like, it was like he just needed to kind of like push forward a new idea, which I don't know. I think politically is brave and important.
I agree. I mean, I love the bird idea. It's a great idea. And what a beautiful little montage sequence. Watching it this time as they're building the bird with like the score, I was like, oh, this is really beautiful. This is like some Pixar magic. I agree. I think it's a politically brilliant idea. I just wish that he hadn't lied to everybody and put everybody in danger in order to enact it. That's it.
Yeah, but they were already in danger, right?
Yeah, but I do think like, I mean, given obviously this is movie logic, and so it's not exciting to go make a collective decision and like try to convince everybody once at a time. But I think what we like, a common sort of tenet of organizing is that the loudest people typically don't make good organizers, and the people who make the best organizers are people who are easy to talk to and are trusted. So community members that have an easy time making like valuable, strong connections to other people. And those people make the best organizers. And typically the people who are like the splashiest, the loudest can sort of get in the way of the movement.
Which is why send in the clowns, you know?
Exactly.
They became the heart of this film. And I think in a lot of ways, what I loved about the role of the clowns and like the role of what it had to say about the role of art was kind of, to your point of connection and shared, and part of what was like a little bit missing in this community was like they needed a resurgence of a little hope, a little joy. And it was also like, to me, that was like one of the strongest themes was like the power of art in this collective struggle and how encouraging, inspiring, important that is to the warriors that this community would have to become.
I feel like the clowns remind the colony what life is without work.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because as soon as they arrive, it's just like a bunch of parties. We're doing music, we're doing theater.
Dances.
Do they bring back the children's theater, which is one of my favorite
Oh my God, I love that. And the ladybug, when they visit the ladybug in the hospital.
It's so good.
Oh, it's so
good.
sweet.
I mean, what a great reveal of like... to the bugs, to the circus performers, like, this is what you're here for. Their faces when they're like, what? No.
They do the circus bugs a little dirty because the main reason they stay is because people are applauding for them.
I mean,
don't we all get it?
Come on, Frank.
Don't we all get it?
Frank, please. Please.
No, you're right. And
there's nothing wrong with that. I think they needed to like people need like encouragement.
They're also like in the context of the story, sort of famously unemployed.
Famously.
They're like, they kind of make a real point about they're not doing well.
Oh yeah, no.
The theater economy is also rough in Bug City.
I mean, they're in everywhere else, babe.
It's hitting every walk of life.
I mean, literally.
I do love also with the circus, but like the whole introduction to the circus bugs, you just get every single character in like 3 minutes. It's that whole opening circus scene
it's so beautifully choreographed and constructed and such like awesome character work. But I think the sort of like the tool of the circus is really good for that because they're circus introductions. And then whatever the thing or trick they do is sort of like in line with who they are. So like the stick bug or like Rosie the spider, just very interesting.
Which is your favorite of the circus bug acts?
Of the people, I like the ladybug the best, but of the acts, I like the elephant bug. I think he's sweet. And I also like the Russian or Eastern European roly-poly bugs.
The pale bugs. Yeah, that's my favorite. Those were always my favorite growing up.
I think that's awesome.
That's Me and my siblings used to like try to do those
Oh
voices
my
to
God,
one
I can
another.
so imagine it.
Yeah, I'm trying to Francis, not Francis. It's not the caterpillar, I guess he's a caterpillar.
Oh yeah, he's a sweetie.
Heimlich.
And then he's a beautiful butterfly.
And then his butterfly at the end. I mean, that
It's
to
so
me
sweet.
is just
It's so sweet. It's rosy cheek.
oh, so sweet. And then and he's pretty brave. I mean, how he's willing to be put up. Just also that whole sequence with the bird. Just like how performers are brave as fuck.
Yeah.
Sorry. Like, I was just like, they saved the day because they're like, we got so many tricks. We're so flexible. We have been like, you learn a lot being unemployed, being that scrappy, being that like, and they've stuck together. Like they really, like the beautiful thing about that circus mentality is they really were their own little collective, their own mutual aid, figuring it out together.
Absolutely.
And they don't even have to talk about it. They can just they're just so in sync to get these acts
They know
together.
how to fill in the gaps. Yeah. I mean, do you know how many comedians I've signed up for unemployment? It's like,
That's actually not, yeah.
you know, they've done stuff for me. I feel like we're all kind of like, I do feel like my friend Teresa Bateman made this joke and I've been repeating it for the last 5 years. But she said once that we're all sending each other the same $20 back and forth.
I love that.
That's so true.
I mean, I don't love it, but
yeah, exactly.
but I love it. But it's funny because I've thought about like, God, would I have sometimes when you'd have that dream of like, should I have just fucking like done a steady like money job? And I gotta say, with the impending typhoon of everything coming our way, I do feel like more secure with the skills that I've collected as a freelancer and an artist. And like, because of exactly what you're saying, like I feel more prepared and kind of grateful to have all of that flexibility facing this than being
Absolutely.
like, I don't know how to do life outside of like this company that was supposed to be my family.
It's a gift to be nimble. Yeah. And I'll say another thing, like the last few years of my career, like I was a TV writer before the strikes and now those jobs are hard to get. And then I was a copywriter until AI exploded and now those jobs are hard to get. And now I work full time at a nonprofit and we're losing funding. So it doesn't even matter where you are. Don't assume that you're safe.
That's it.
I'm sorry.
We're all going to be
It's
in the
okay.
circus for a bit.
I think nonprofits are evil in their own way. It's a nonprofit industrial complex. But, you know, we do good work.
Yeah. There's absolutely good work done. There's absolutely some, like you're saying, some shady ass nonprofit shit that happens. But that's another podcast.
That's
sure.
another podcast completely. And one for when I'm done with this job.
Yeah, come back on whenever you leave this company. You can
I'll be
spill
following
all
up.
the tea. I also did notice in Bug City, there was what appeared to be one homeless bug with a sign that said, "A kid pulled my wings off," which I didn't love the inclusion of like an unhoused person in Bug City, but I guess I did appreciate that the reason that they are unhoused was outside of their control, and not because of their own individual moral failings. That's it. Nothing else other than that.
Retweet.
Back to the
Retweet.
Thank you.
Absolutely
Thank you for the
retweet.
retweet. Yeah.
back to the hoppers. I felt like I also felt like they leaned into it. It was like clearly like, to me, it felt like American imperialist coded, particularly like when they're back at camp and you're just like, it feels just like this like dying purposeless, like you felt almost bad for them too. Like this life was just, I mean, I think you were meant to. They were like, the Richard Kind character makes that point of like, or rather his friends do, right? About like, hey, we do have everything we need. Like, can we just chill here? Do we have to?
But no, because that's the thesis of imperialism. There's always more. There's more to extract. You know,
And they
profit
did
can
such a
only
good
go
job
up.
of pointing out and underlining like the purposelessness of it. That like, yeah, there's more to extract for no point, and that so often it becomes.
But then when Hopper comes back at Richard Kind and he's like, if we stop now, they will never respect us. We'll never be able to open that line of funds again. We just need to keep applying pressure and turn it up every year.
At that point, it's just about power. It's just about power and like maintaining authority over this subjugated population.
Such clarity.
Such
Yeah.
clarity. I mean, I would love to talk to the writer. I really would. I'm so interested in it because it's a conversation that like a lot of times we're really not allowed to have. Just about like the extraction culture and like, I mean, American imperialism is a great way to sum it up, but also sort of like the long line of colonialism and like the way that how we treat other countries is now, I mean, I think especially this year, just really coming home to roost in a way that's like very obvious. And whatever we're willing to do abroad, we're willing to do at home. Totally. And so like for many years, I think a lot of us have been able to ignore American imperialism because we benefit from it indirectly, but also it's not in front of us. And now that it's in front of us, are we able to like do anything? What's the plan?
And how so long people have been saying, just like those other soldiers, like, wait, but can we take care of us? Like, do we have enough? Why are we over there? And they're like, because if you don't, they'll get you. You know, all that fear mongering for so long is so deeply ingrained.
And then also it's like, who's the richest person there? It's Hopper. It's not the bugs beneath him, but the bugs beneath him think that they're on the way up. And so they're willing to, you know, carry his load, so to speak, to enact his word.
It is wild that this movie and Ants came out almost around the exact same time. We're both movies about ant colonies and both had pretty like stellar, like worker proletariat centric politics. Ants is much more about like the military and also eugenics, crazily. Rewatch Ants. It is.
I'm not remembering that.
It's very clearly, it is heavily, it's the whole third act of the movie. But there's also like, there's a line in Ants where one of the, like, there's like a little montage happening and one of the ants says to the other ants, it's the workers who control the means of production. Like, so the writers, at least the writer for Ants knew, like, had some sort of like socialist Marxist grounding in writing that script. I would also be very curious to talk to the, what is it, 6 men who wrote this who wrote this movie, and find what was in the water at Pixar, you know, during this time.
Yeah, well, and then it's so funny that the reason like those two movies came out at the same time, they were in deep competition because it was like Pixar versus DreamWorks. They thought the idea was stolen. I think it was Ants was supposed to be released later, and they're like, we're bringing it up for like so there's like this intense capitalist competition for these like films with this.
There's something interesting there about how like these conversations only exist in pretend. So it's like we're like these worlds, which are reflective of the real worlds, they're animation cartoons, and so everybody involved can be like, this is a pretend story. And then in their real lives, they're in capitalistic competition with each other, like laying off animators and streamlining anything they can, and extracting profits.
Yeah, they get to live out their loftiest ideals only through the fiction that they create.
Exactly, it's like proletariat fantasy.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah,
which I think we all feel, and like few of us ever get to enact.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talk about it so much because we cover kids movies from time to, or animated movie from time to time, and so many of them are rooted in this kind of storytelling, in sort of like an anti-authority, collectivist, sometimes like anti-business themes usually run through a lot of kids' movies. I'm thinking of like the Lego Movie, amongst others, that is just, you know, make it very clear, like big business bad, big CEO at top of business bad, you know, business do evil thing. Movies like this that also like reinforce, these more egalitarian collectivist ideas.
I genuinely do think that a lot of adults think of those ideas as children's ideas. And they expect that you will grow up and grow out of it, and that you'll like, quote unquote, learn to live in the real world. And, you know, there's that phrase that, I mean, my dad said it growing up, but I'm pretty sure it's popular, where it's like, if you're not liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. And if you're not conservative when you're old, you don't have a brain.
I've actually never heard that. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, really not cool. But yeah, basically being like, once you have a stake in the world, you realize that like liberalism, it doesn't work and it's stupid. And I think that's why in children's movies, we can put this conversation forward. And in adults' work, it's seen as like too lofty, too pretend, too soft, maybe. I think it's a conversation that very few adults get to take seriously.
So interesting, because in reality, it feels like, just as you were saying that, I'm like, yeah, I think it's like, it just takes, there's an energy of youth that it takes, because it's like seemingly simple, but you're like, this shit is hard.
Yes.
And like, Bug's Life is not an easy tale. Like, this was not easy for all of them.
The stakes are high.
Yeah, I think it's like not so much brain, or at least in my observation from those that do veer conservative who start, because it's always fascinating when you're like, how did that journey, what the fuck happened? And I got to imagine part of it is just,
it's a loss of hope.
Propaganda is, loss of hope. The propaganda is like, just builds and builds and builds, and you're tired.
And I also think you're isolated. And I think what keeps me firmly in like a socialist lifestyle is I am very close friends with my neighbors. I'm like, am in constant community with comedians and people at Soup Kitchen and, various orgs around the city, or even like people who live on my block, my mailman and I are buds. And I'm like, that takes me offline. It puts me into the real world. And then I am like constantly dealing with material needs. And to me, like the way to organize the answers to that is through socialism.
I love that. I needed to hear that. I don't know why my TikTok got so dark last night, but suddenly, I don't know what I clicked or what I did. I really don't. But like suddenly there was like a survivalist who's like, when it's the depths of the winter and like the blackouts here, you can't even light. You got to think about what you're lighting because they're all going to cut. It was just so isolated and dark and solo. And I was like in it for a minute and I was like, wait a minute, that's not how it's going to, I'm not going to be alone. Like, and so you just, what you were saying, like, wait a minute, no.
It's about like, this is so lame, but I'm like, it's about weaving the fabric of your life. Like it's about meeting people and staying in contact. And I think that like comedy, especially because of the way you get famous now, we have to be online, but like, I'm not on TikTok anymore. I try to really pick my moments to be online. It's probably hurt my career, but it's made my life better. And like what I love about comedy is that another way you get successful is just by meeting people and staying in touch and becoming good friends. And so it's like, I'm trying to apply that to like my life in a holistic sense.
I think you're talking about networking.
Okay, but I don't agree with that word.
Networking?
Because I went to Emerson. There was a bunch of kids from Emerson who moved out. And like, I remember one kid who was like a big comedian on campus, couldn't get booked in LA. And his complaint was people in LA only book their friends. I was like, okay, go make a friend. Like, go make some friends. What the hell's wrong with that? If networking is like going to get coffee with people I enjoy, sure. I'm a networker.
Guilty. Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I'll say about people becoming more conservative as they grow up, I think you're right. Isolation, such a huge part of it. Also paired with, if people have, especially in American society, if people have enough experiences where they are shown materially that society, the government, whatever, people around you don't give a fuck about you, or you just like are struggling in a material way and no one comes to help you, that lived experience 100% informs your politics. And I mean, hopefully you have then, some more actual social interaction that reinforces in a better way. But most of the time people just revert to like, well, I got fucked and nobody helped me, so why would I ever want to help anybody else? And then
I had to pay my student loans. Fuck you. Like what? How does that
all
help?
That shit.
I mean, I think the thing for that is like, we just need to be extra helpful to those people. Like we need to reassure them that with the right, budget allotments and funding, help is coming. And elite conservatives have a stake in making sure that our public services fail so that they can privatize them and enrich themselves. And the reason that your experience with government has been so bad is because it's been routinely defunded and devalued since Reagan. And it's hard because that's true. Like their lived experience, it is real and it feels big to them. And it's hard to imagine a different way when that's all you know. But I think that's where like mutual aid can come in and sort of support those people until we, can change the way that public services run.
That's beautiful.
Riv and I both used to live in LA, and as heartbreaking as the fires were to watch from afar, just watching the LA community come together, especially the mutual aid scene, to just fill in the gaps that the city and the state were not able to serve, was like, again, it was so fucking sad and heartbreaking, but also so heartening to see so many people just coming just to help each other. And, it wasn't just leftists or socialists or liberals who lost their shit in the fire. I'm sure there were a ton of conservatives as well who also got the same help and probably got a chance to interact with mutual aid organizations, with people who do have more of like a left ideology for the first time in a real way. And that is, I wish it didn't have to happen, but I'm heartened that that the LA community really showed what humans do.
I think about that, two things. Firstly, like the reason that was able to happen is because there are so many mutual aid organizations here that started work during the pandemic and did not stop. And so that infrastructure already existed so that when something bad happened, they were able to start. Specifically, I'm thinking of a group called Mask Block LA, who's been handing out masks since the pandemic. And like during the fires was able to ramp up, service and fill in like very serious gaps. But they were able to do that because they never stopped working. And so there are so many wonderful mutual aid organizations out here that have existed day in and day out. And, when something bad happens, their work becomes a little more highlighted, but it's always going on in the background. And then secondly, I would say that and I think this about Soup Kitchen all the time, where it's not political on a left or right binary, but it's political in its nature. And so we don't care if somebody is like, I do my service through a church. We see a lot of very religious people. We see people all across the political spectrum, and we're never talking about that. But, feeding people is inherently political because the personal is the political, and also because, certain policy choices affect can these people eat or not. But the way that I think we move the needle forward is we don't have political conversations and we just support people in material ways so that they can live a safe enough life that they are ready to have those political conversations.
Oh, I love all of that. And to tie it back to A Bug's Life.
Yeah, bring it back around, girl.
No, but it just made me think about how actually, yes, Flick is doing all of it, but none of Flick's ideas, nothing that the circus really comes up with could have happened without the infrastructure that was the ants, that was what they've been setting up for years and years and years. And just and that what he does is kind of kick it into gear, but they're just you just see it mobilized immediately. And that just, when you were talking about mutual aid, I was like, right, that's why that's so, it's not that mutual aid just developed and reacted, which I think that is to highlight and empower that part of the left, which is not always talked about or visible or seen, because we can see how we're well, the right is so organized and they've been planning all this shit since Reagan era and they've been really, 2025 and all this, but the mutual aid is where it's at, and that's the ant colonies. That's that then a Flick and a circus can come along and activate.
Yeah, use that infrastructure for means to a different end.
Yeah. Princess Ada says it during when she's pitching the bird speech to everybody. It starts there. She says, if our ancestors could build this entire colony, imagine we can come together to build this bird together.
Truly. Comparatively, yeah, you're the bird's not, the bird's tiny.
But to them, it feels so big,
Yeah, to them it is. Yeah, to them it's so big.
It also has a lot of mechanics. I mean, we're getting into we're getting into aerodynamics with the bird.
Yeah.
There's audio-visual stuff happening. There's a whole,
That's true with the leaf. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Did either of you have anything you want to hit before we go to the awards?
I'm thinking. I mean, I think it's a good and simple sort of centuries-long tale about the work that you do together is more important than anything else, and how just because you're used to exploitation doesn't mean that it's right, and you can't get too comfortable with it. You can't get so comfortable with it that you no longer see it.
Yeah. It's not a law of nature.
It's not a law of nature. Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, specifically given the context of the movie. It's not a law of nature. It's not the divined way that it's supposed to be. We can always do things differently. A different world is always possible. We should never stop having those conversations.
So beautiful.
Thanks. I'm Hope Corps this year. We'll see you about next year.
No, I'm fully Bug's Life. I'm totally this is re-radicalized on Bug's Life. Let's go.
You guys are
First
bug-pilled.
movie my kid is seeing.
Fun.
So Ellory, this is the point in the podcast where we like to hand out some awards for the episode. And our first award is the Best Politics Award. This goes to the character with the best politics in the movie. And we can nominate a few people, but we'll ultimately, in this capitalist system, there will only be one winner.
That's a really good... Here's who comes to the mind for me. The princess.
Yeah.
Dot. And then the circus troupe.
Yeah, Dot, for sure.
That's
circus
good.
troupe as an ensemble.
As an ensemble. Maybe some peek out a little bit more than others, but mostly as an ensemble.
Yeah. Yes, the circus troupe they are such a tight community. They care about and support each other, both materially and, socially. They do ultimately want to help this ant colony. This is tough. Yeah. I would lean Princess Ada, because she really has like the colony at heart the whole time, and is the one just like sounding like she's so nervous, and that's her character thing is that she gets really nervous and anxious. But it's all because she's concerned about the colony and taking care of everybody. And she's the first person. Flick is the person who articulates, and I don't want to give it to Flick because of all of the reasons that I've already said, but she's the first person to come to Flick's defense when Hopper is about to squish him, after Flick says his whole, like, it's you who need us thing. Yeah, I would vote Princess Ada.
I would too. I mean, Dot, it's hard to not want to give it to Dot.
Children have perfect politics, as we've discussed.
Because they haven't been tainted yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This goes back to our conversation. Yeah.
Believes, has that energy, and that, is.
But that means it doesn't count. If your politics haven't been tested, I don't think it counts.
Yeah, that's true.
You need to be able to keep them in the face of like whatever's coming.
I'm with you on that. I agree.
You have to be able to apply them.
Yeah, then we have then I have some questions about Willy Wonka for you, but that'll be later.
We need to be throwing children into more politically dangerous situations is what we need to be doing.
Send them back to the mines.
Yeah.
I mean, and interesting, I guess there was no child labor in the, they were in school.
They were playing, yeah. I was actually surprised about that. I was expecting to see more child labor.
Another positive quality of this movie. Yeah. Okay, great. So the next award, I think we're giving it to Princess Ada, yeah.
Yeah.
These also, they're made up and they don't matter, so yeah.
Unfortunately, well, really, because when I visualize us playing this game, Frank, I always see them in it goes there for my brain, and I see all of our nominees.
And you see some faces. Disappointed in losing. And so you see Dot.
How do you think that circus, Dot's fine. I don't know about our circus troupe.
Yeah, they might not be able to take it. They really they really needed that award.
Yeah, they really needed the press, to.
Although the praying mantis character, what does he say? He's always like, we're just used, that's our shtick. We're so used to failing.
Yeah.
Losing.
Oh yeah, he said, I have built a career on being a failure, and you, sir, are no failure.
So good. Okay, so naturally the next award is worst politics, goes to the character with the worst politics in the movie.
Hopper.
Yeah. That one's easy.
That's easy. That's Hopper. Absolutely Hopper. Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, we got an award for you.
I will say, if we're talking about Kevin Spacey, I'll go on I'll tell one anecdote. We went to Riv and I met in theater school circa the late 2000s. And even then, we were hearing stories about fucking Kevin Spacey. We were hearing stories from the older seniors who then had friends out like in New York in the theater scene. And even as plucky 18-year-olds, we were already being told, if you ever find yourself in a room, we're just talking to the boys, if you ever find yourself a room with Kevin Spacey, do not stay by yourself. So this has been a long running thing.
Absolutely. I don't think anybody doesn't believe. Everybody believes it. I've never heard anybody be like, why would he do that?
Alleged.
I know, literally.
I just think Kevin Spacey. I think there's Kevin Spacey's out there going alleged.
Sure. I do love those videos he's posting out.
I know the videos are very Hopper. So, is he going to have any competition in this field?
Some might say that his underlings have a more responsibility because they don't really believe it. So they have a responsibility to rise up, but they're cowards, so they won't.
They do.
Such cowards. And his brother could have like, there was potential to organize against him. Like he's telling them literally like, if all of these ants come together, we're screwed. It's like, yeah, if we all come together against you, you're screwed.
But they're flushing mosquito margaritas, so hard to fight against that.
Yeah. And okay, our last award, better supporting character. This goes to the supporting character that this movie should actually be about, or that you just would love to see get their spin-off, I love the Bug City, and I love the theater troupe, and that to me is like the most fun part of the world. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that, I feel like I could live in that universe for a little bit longer.
Definitely. I would watch a whole, like, the bug. How did the Bug Circus troupe come together?
Yeah,
when did they first form? 100%. Also, we didn't mention it up top, but like a very stacked voice cast in the Bug Theater troupe. We had David Hyde Pierce. We had Dennis Leary that we mentioned. Madeline Kahn before she passed away.
Wow.
Absolutely, yeah, absolute stacked voice cast. I would absolutely watch more about them and how P.T. Flea got his claws into them. I also always loved Molt as a kid, the Richard Kind, Hopper's brother character.
Yeah, he's great. But I can't tell if that's because of the character or because I like Richard Kind so much. Do you know what I mean? I have a hard time.
I think it could be both.
I can
Yeah,
see
it can
their
be both.
childhood. There's so much happening there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He refers to their mother constantly. I like, who was the who was Hopper and Molt's mother? Was she what's her fucking name? Was she like Elon Musk's
I was
mother?
just about
What
to
is her
say,
name?
oh my God. Imagine.
It's like Moral or some shit like that.
Yeah.
There's a dark like Southern noir kind of tale happening with those two. For me, it's going to be Mr. Soil, the ant colony's resident thespian.
Oh yeah.
And maybe it's because
He was in Picnic.
he was in Picnic.
He was the lead in Picnic.
And I thought they missed enough. I mean, he was so excited for them to be there. I thought there could have been a little bit more if I was writing like him trying to be in, how exciting would that be for
more like
him?
local theater opportunities. I also loved the Bug like Girl Scout troop.
Oh,
I loved them. I thought that
love
was
them.
yeah.
The Blueberries?
The
Is that what they were
Blueberries,
called?
yes.
Yeah.
The Blueberries.
And the Blueberries are
Blueberries.
the bravest ones.
They are.
That's like a real
Yeah.
Girl Scout troop. That's like a real deal doing the thing. No cookies here. They're just in the action.
They
We
fly
have
the
to
bird.
radicalize the Girl Scouts, get them front lines.
Hell yeah.
There's also, we didn't touch on it, but there's like a trans story in here as well with Francis the ladybug being misgendered constantly. I don't think it's any more. It's like it's surface level. It's just like you think he's a ladybug.
Here, can I give you my take on that?
Oh, go for it.
Okay, as trans issues are ramping up and people are so militant about defining gender, people like that suffer, or like masculine women suffer, or feminine men suffer, because they're so adamant that you fit into that box that people who are cis that do not fit into that box, they are going to suffer too. And that's why it's one of the many reasons it's so important to protect trans issues, because the only way that you will ever be able to check is like genital checks, which is obviously so wrong. And so for the feminine ladybug to actually be a masculine man, I'm like, that's dope. He should not have to present masculine just to be gendered the way that he wants to, even if it is in line with the way that he was born.
Yes.
Definitely.
And then that they didn't, I mean, I hate to say, but like that they didn't lean into any horrible jokes. There was like nothing, which is like would be so expected. I just think from like
A 1998.
a 1998 movie. And actually what happens is like the Blueberries fall in love with this character. They're not like gendering the character, but like, that he's able to just be so kind and loving. And like, I think they say something at the end, like you found your, I guess maybe it was a bad joke, but like you found your feminine side, but just that like.
But he was like so pushing against his feminine side because people
Exactly.
kept putting on him. He felt like he had to defend his masculinity because everybody assumes that a ladybug is a lady. And so it put him so on guard that he wasn't allowed to enjoy the feminine side of himself.
Which actually just made him more maternal, which is like
Yeah,
every
which is a
man
good
should have
thing.
that. It's a good thing.
Exactly.
So it felt positive at the end, which actually, again, another positive trait for this movie.
Every man should go to theater school. This is
Agreed.
a theory of mine. Yeah. Or just like be in theater for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that those bugs went to school.
I do want to see the circus school that they open next. I'm like, let's say that they're done being performers and they open a circus school.
For the ants, yeah.
Yeah, or for anybody
there
who wants to
conflict
stop
there?
by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're teaching like French style clowning.
No, exactly.
and-
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
I love that.
Amazing. Well, I think those are some great awards we gave out for this film. I think we covered this movie. It was
I think we got it.
such a pleasure to have you join us. Before we let you go, we'd love to ask our guests how, as artists and people, and we've touched on this a bit, but is there one thing that you wanted to kind of highlight that you practice in your daily life that sort of is the place where you practice your values, be it your lefty values, anti-capitalist values?
Yeah, I sort of I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I'm taking like a weird religious turn where I'm like, I think my my religion like really is volunteerism, and I really believe in volunteerism as like a tenet of a full life. And I think that it brings you out into the real world. It connects you to people in very selfish ways. I think it's good for you. I think that's how you meet people that you want to be friends with and you want to fall in love with and stuff like that. And I also think it's like such a tangible way to do work. And it also doesn't have to be, this is my spiel I give everybody, but like if there's something you're interested in, there is a way to volunteer in that space. In LA, there are dogs that haven't been walked in months at animal shelters. They're always looking for dog walkers and people to take care of the dogs and clean the cages. There are compost groups, there are community gardens, there are brother and sister clubs. You could be a bike marshal for like a bike race or a marathon. There are so many ways to like actually be outside. And I think like my commitment to that has been so healthy for me and is like the main way that I practice my politics.
I love that.
That's one of the best ones that you could suggest for sure. And especially now in this second Trump term. And we've talked about it on this podcast. Like I am also having those conversations with people that are like, man, everything is just so bad. Like, what can I do? And I say the same thing, Ellory. I'm just like, just go out, just go like pick something that you care about. Doesn't have to necessarily be inherently political, but just like go do something, go volunteer. I've been like canvassing here in Brooklyn, and every time I go out, I'm just like, oh yes, the people, the community. Oh, it makes you feel like you're saying, like selfishly, it makes you feel good along with doing good.
Absolutely. Every time I have a friend who's like spiraling out or is going through something tough or is like, doesn't know where they're going in life, I'm like, show up on a Tuesday, make some food with us, and inevitably they always come back. And so it's funny because it's like, we're sort of a wayward house for like entertainment people who don't know what's next for them. So people
a little bit of a circus.
A little bit of a circus. I mean, absolutely a little bit of a circus. But, they come out, they eat lunch with us, they meet people. It's like such a healthy experience that underlines community. And just, I'm like, you know what? It's not networking. You're just making friends. You're meeting people. You're getting outside of yourself. Don't let your home be your prison. Get outside, all that good stuff.
Beautiful. And then lastly, Ellory, I will have you do some actual networking right now. Where can our audience find you and your work if they so choose to?
Sure. If you so choose to, don't feel pressured. You can find me on Instagram at Ellory_Smith and on Twitter at Ellory Smith.
Awesome. It was so nice meeting you. Thank you so much for doing this and for closing out
this was
our bug
so
movies.
Fun.
Yeah. Such a joy. Thank you.
To get ourselves a treat, let's all go to the lobby.
Thank you all so much for listening. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And if you want to support this show and get access to our Patreon episodes, that link is in the episode description in your podcast player or at mvcpod.com.
Also, another reminder, we donate our ad space, so if you're part of a leftist or progressive organization and you would like to run an ad on this program, please email us at moviesvscapitalism@gmail.com.
For next week, we'll be watching the 1995 Robin Williams classic, Jumanji.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
To get ourselves a treat.